Have you ever heard of the Titanoboa? Picture a snake so massive it makes an anaconda look like a garter snake. We're talking about a prehistoric giant that could grow up to 13 meters long and weigh over a ton. It lived about 60 million years ago, ruling the swampy jungles of what is now Colombia. But what if this colossal creature never went extinct? What if the Titanoboa was still slithering through our world today? First, let's understand the scale of this beast. A Titanoboa was longer than a school bus and as heavy as a small car. Its body was nearly a meter thick at its widest point. Unlike many modern snakes that kill with venom, the Titanoboa was a constrictor, just like a boa or a python. But its squeeze was legendary. It could exert a crushing force of around 400 pounds per square inch. That's like having the entire weight of the Brooklyn Bridge pressing down on you. Nothing that got caught in its coils would stand a chance. So, if Titanoboa were still around, where would it live? Its fossils were found in a hot, humid, tropical environment. So, its modern-day home would likely be the planet's densest, warmest, and wettest rainforests. Places like the Amazon basin, the Congo, and parts of Southeast Asia. These regions offer the perfect combination of heat, water, and, most importantly, large prey. A creature this big needs a lot of food to survive. What would be on the menu? Based on its fossil environment, we know Titanoboa shared its world with giant turtles and prehistoric crocodiles. It was an apex predator capable of taking down truly massive animals. So, in today's world, it would be hunting the largest creatures in the jungle. We're talking about jaguars, large caimans, tapirs, and maybe even adult anacondas. Anything that came to the water's edge for a drink would be at risk. The food chain in these ecosystems would be completely rewritten. The Titanoboa wouldn't just be at the top. It would be in a league of its own. Animals that are currently apex predators like the jaguar would suddenly find themselves becoming prey. The impact on the ecosystem would be profound. The presence of such a mega-predator would create what biologists call a landscape of fear. Herbivores would become much more cautious, changing their grazing and migration patterns to avoid areas where Titanoboa might be lurking. They would likely avoid dense riverbanks and swampy areas, which could lead to changes in vegetation as certain plants would be able to grow more freely without being eaten. This, in turn, would affect other smaller animals that depend on those plants. The entire balance of the rainforest would shift around this one colossal giant. Now let's talk about the most terrifying question. What about us? Could a Titanoboa eat a human? The answer is an easy and definitive yes. A snake this large wouldn't even consider a human a difficult meal. We would be well within the size range of its normal prey. For communities living in or near these rainforests, life would be unimaginably different. Rivers and swamps, which are often vital sources of food and transportation, would become no-go zones. The fear would be constant. Every rustle in the undergrowth, every shadow in the water could signal the presence of a silent, one-ton hunter. Imagine the folklore and legends that would arise. This creature wouldn't just be an animal. It would be a living myth, a god or a demon in local cultures. Stories of the great river serpent would be passed down through generations, shaping beliefs, rituals, and the daily lives of millions. It would be a tangible monster that demands respect and fear. Of course, the modern world would react. Once discovered, the Titanoboa would become the most sensational biological find in history. Scientists would be desperate to study it, but how would you even approach a creature like this? Capturing a live Titanoboa would be an incredibly dangerous and complex operation, requiring a massive team and specialized equipment far beyond what we use for any animal today. Think of a military-style operation just to tranquilize one. Conservation efforts would be a nightmare. How do you protect an animal that poses such a direct and lethal threat to humans? It would create a huge ethical dilemma. On one hand, it would be an endangered species of immense scientific value. On the other, it's a man-eater. Protected areas would need to be vast and incredibly well secured, more like a real-life Jurassic Park than a typical nature reserve. The conflict between protecting the snake and protecting human lives would be a constant, heated debate. Then there's the pop culture effect. The Titanoboa would become an instant global superstar. Documentaries would shatter viewing records. It would inspire a whole new genre of monster movies that wouldn't need any special effects to be terrifying. But this fame would also attract the wrong kind of attention. Poachers and big-game hunters would see the Titanoboa as the ultimate prize. The black market for its skin, which would be enormous, or even just the bragging rights of having hunted one, would create a huge illegal trade, putting the species at even greater risk. Economically, ecotourism might see a strange boom. Imagine Titanoboa spotting tours from heavily armored boats offering thrill-seekers a glimpse of the giant snake from a safe distance. It would be the most extreme form of wildlife tourism on the planet, but the risks would be immense, and any accident would be catastrophic and likely fatal. So, a world with Titanoboa would be a wilder, more dangerous, and arguably more wondrous place. It would force us to reconsider our place in the natural world. We're so used to being at the top of the food chain, but the existence of Titanoboa would be a humbling and terrifying reminder that we are not invincible. It would redraw the maps of our world, creating vast territories where humans are not the dominant species, but just another item on the menu. Luckily for us, the Titanoboa is confined to the pages of history books and the halls of museums. It died out millions of years ago, likely because the planet cooled down and it could no longer sustain its massive, cold-blooded metabolism. But it's fascinating to imagine the what if. It reminds us of the incredible and sometimes terrifying forms that life on our planet has taken. The age of monsters may be over, but their legacy helps us appreciate the world we live in today. Thanks so much for watching. It's incredible to think about these prehistoric giants, isn't it? If you enjoyed this journey into a world that might have been, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more explorations into the wonders of science and history. Let me know in the comments what other what-if scenarios you'd like to see. Until next time, stay curious.